we don't want people to give up. Like, we're trying to help improve people's lives here. And if you get on to them or don't acknowledge that this is hard, then they're just going to give up and they might not ever try again. You might be their last effort to make a change, and not handling this little conversation right could be the change of them having a lean, healthy, happy life to just like going back and doing what they do. So, hi, I'm Scott Schutte.
And I'm Dr. Janine Stichter.
Welcome to Becoming the Ultimate Coach with the Jock
And the Doc.
We are here to disrupt some of the current thinking around how the fitness industry approaches clients. Our goal is to educate and inspire fitness professionals to get the results, income, hours, and career that they want and deserve.
Our combined experience in education in psychology and fitness create a new insight on ways to become the ultimate coach.
Welcome to Becoming the Ultimate Coach. I'm the Jock, this is the Doc, and today we're going to talk about how to get in your client's business without getting into their business. So if you've been in personal training for a while, you understand that some people really like to share their day-to-day things. Some things you're like, I have no idea what to say to this, what to do with this, I'm just going to avoid this. So as you mature as a trainer, you got to figure out how and when to get into this. I'm glad I don't have to answer this question today. That's what we got the Doc here. So Doc, how do we do this?
Well, number one, I was going to start with and why is it important, right? Because the thing is too, it's like, there's part of this is like, how do I handle this overshare, which sometimes it is. But then other times, why do I need to dive into this a little bit? Because it's going to help me be a better coach or trainer or whatever, right? So it's kind of those two facets. But the first thing about this is that I think a lot of people early on in this type of service profession misunderstand this notion of sympathy versus empathy. So sympathy is just acknowledging it. Oh, you fell in that hole. Sorry that you're there. And that's it. That's sympathy. I get it. Sorry about that. Sorry for your loss. Sorry. And sympathy has its place. But when you have a connection or relationship with your client, you're seeing them on a regular basis, they're sharing some of their personal things, you also need to make sure that you're truly thinking about empathy. And a lot of times I hear this I'm 25 years old. I can't even relate to this person with multiple kids and working and dealing with a husband and all these kind of things. Or, wow, I've never had a loss like that, or I've never had a major injury like that. I'm not sure what would I say. It's not about saying the absolute perfect thing. But one of the best ways to think about empathy is in three ways. There's actually three types of empathy. And psychologists Goldman and Ekman did a great job of just breaking these three down. And the first one's cognitive empathy, which is just sort of, I'm hearing you, I understand, this is stressful, and I appreciate that it is. And that's at least acknowledgement and kind of keeping it at a surface level. But again, if you need to make an impact with your clients, if they're sharing further or it seems to be impacting their fitness goals in your relationship with them, we need to go to the next step, which is emotional empathy. And this is just saying even though I've not experienced this, I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. So if this is a mom with 3 kids that's working full time and juggling all of that and the household, and she's talking to you about how difficult it is for healthy eating or those types of things, you may not be that mom with the 3 kids and all of those things, but you can start to appreciate that this is tough. That's a lot to juggle, and what you're asking her to do might not be the top priority of the day. So that's that emotional empathy. And then the last one is that compassionate empathy, and that just means that you're able to lean in. And again, only when appropriate. There are certain things that are way outside of our scope, and the best you can do is the cognitive empathy or maybe the emotional, of just wow, that sounds tough. I'm sorry your spouse has passed away. You aren't going to be able to fix that. But the compassionate empathy says, okay, they're really stressed out about some of their health markers, or they're worried about things. They seem fine from what I'm asking them to do, but I keep hearing about this over and over again, and they're really stressed. Do I have someone in my referral network that I could encourage them maybe to go see that would help that, to reduce that? I can acknowledge that what they're feeling is impacting where they want to go. And what resources do I have to do that? And again, it's about being positive and an assistant. You don't have to dive deep down into the hole of Waller. But again, it's that connection. And so I think that that's really important to think about. And as you're talking with different clients and different conversations, you can kind of think about those 3 types of empathy and figure out where you are and what's most appropriate for that situation.
And here's ultimately why you should care as a gym owner and running a team of professional trainers is I'll have clients come up to me and they will just stop with their first session with someone if they say something to them and the trainer's like, okay, well, let's move on to doing squats. Like, they don't even acknowledge it. They don't show any empathy. That person's like, well, they don't care about me, so I don't want to work with them. So you're just going to lose people right away. But if you do figure out how to use empathy in the right way and acknowledge, like, that does suck, like, I understand, kind of what you're going through, they will love you more. They will refer more people to you. Your retention of clients is going to be better. And ultimately, you're going to get more success. The other thing, too, is the people are showing up. When people show up, like, I give them tons of kudos because that is the hardest thing to do. And so if they show up and we've had a plan in place of them to get so many steps in and improve their water, something like that, and they didn't do any of that because, something happened with their kids or work or parents or something like that, I'm like, hey, there's certain times in our life that we have to just hold on and not lose ground. And there's gonna be certain times where it's a little bit easier where we can move forward. So we don't want people to give up. Like, we're trying to help improve people's lives here. And if you get on to them or don't acknowledge that this is hard, then they're just gonna give up and they might not ever try again. You might be their last effort to make a change, and not handling this little conversation right could be the change of them having a lean, healthy, happy life to just like going back and doing what they do. So I don't want to put a lot of pressure on you, but it's true. Like, you might be their last hope. Kind of shifting here, something we see is like when people talk about the relationships. So this is part of this like awkward, well, my husband's doing this and I'm mad at him for doing this. Like, how should they handle conversations in that regard?
Yeah, great question. And those are always a little awkward. It's like, all right, well, morning at the household, good to know, right? And so I think a couple things. Right off the bat, they're sharing with you that they've had or are in the middle of something that's challenging for them. And instead of getting too mentally like, oh God, I don't want to talk about the husband thing, right away just think like, wow, they showed up, they're still doing the work, and they got some baggage that they just showed up with. So that's always tough for any of us. Yeah. So right away, just kind of keep that in mind. And then listen for, what I a lot of times do is like, the first thing I'm saying is I'm acknowledging. Oh, yeah, that sounds like, or I'm sorry, and yeah, that's tough, or that's whatever the type of thing is. But then also listen for little pieces of things like, I was trying to make time to meditate, my husband won't watch the kids, and he's letting them running around, and it's really like loud and exhausting. Well, instead of saying like, oh yeah, your husband should do better, is say, are there are there other times in the household when no one's home that you might be able to meditate so you don't have to deal with that? And so, does your husband come home for lunch? No. Are the kids at school? Yes. Is there like a 15-minute slot there where the house is just still that you could do that? Sometimes I find that I get in my head, I have to do certain things at a certain time of day, but when I pull back, I realize there's some other options. I didn't know if that was a good one for you. So I like to take the little piece. So instead of listening to the symptom or just the trigger, why are they upset? Because they didn't have time to themselves, because they didn't, no one was listening to them. My husband never listens. I'm trying to explain something to him. Do you have a girlfriend that you sometimes share things with? Whatever. I can't control what the husband's doing or not doing in this scenario, but I can help sometimes. Asking just questions can oftentimes help sometimes people really think about things differently and start to problem themselves. So my biggest thing is you don't have to come with the solution. Yep. You don't have to have experienced it. But A, either take the thread and see if you can help them think about another option, or B, just ask some open-ended questions that get them sort of thinking about things differently. And of course, in certain situations, a little redirect's not bad either.
Yeah, and so one of the things we've talked about in earlier episodes is we do this healthy behavior assessment. And so sometimes it comes back of like their relationships score is low, or their stress management score is low. And the reason why those are important, because if those are off, then usually they're not as motivated to train, their nutrition's off, so it just affects us overall health. And plus we want to help them, their overall fitness journey. And so if someone's relationship score is low, I'm not like, well, what's wrong in your relationships? Or if someone's stress management is low, I'm like, well, what's stressful in your life? What I'm constantly doing is pushing more to this positive side of like, well, who in your life do you like love spending time with, that you're active with or that just makes you laugh that you haven't recently? And then how do we figure out times for you to spend more time with them? So I'm shifting to that. Or the stress management, I'm not like, if they're like kids are stressful and work stressful and husband's stressful, I'm like, well, let's try to find one of those to cut out. I'm not getting into that game. I'm more of like, what do you like to do for fun? Which is a fun game to play with clients, because some of them are like, so many clients are like, I don't do anything for fun. And so like, what's something you used to do for fun, or what's something you'd like to do? And it just like, even if it's small amounts, like, all right, this book that you really wanted to read, can you spend like 5 minutes in the evening doing that? Or, planning something on the weekends, or planning a trip in a couple months or something like that. Like having them like work some more of this fun, positive things in there. So what's your tactic on this adding this more positive to that?
Yeah, a lot of times what happens is that we all, as humans, especially the longer you're on Earth and the more you're kind of doing things, is we get into these cognitive structures that we create for ourselves. This is when I get up in the morning. This is when I can work out. This is when I go grocery shopping. This is when I do something like watch TV or whatever. And TV is a great example of that too. Some people just get in the habit of after dinner, I'm going to sit down and I'll watch TV. Did you watch anything you enjoyed, or did you just watch what was on?
Yeah.
Even small things like that can make a huge difference about, oh, you're watching TV instead of being like, oh, you should go move more, and maybe they should. But what did you watch? Do you enjoy it? I don't know, it's just on. And kind of helping people find those small nuggets of things like even what you watch, can you shift to something that you enjoy? And thinking about that. But a lot of times we just get into, as human beings, we have some comfort in structure, and structure is important to us. But sometimes what happens is we get so used to what it is that we have a hard time thinking about what it could be. And so just those small little questions or examples, or, oh, I had a client that da-da-da-da-da. They may not do the same thing as your other client, but they're like, oh, I hadn't even thought of that, or that's a thing. And so just some of those types of things help people just think about it differently, and you're not focusing on what's not working well. You're just starting to get the brain to think about where it could go.
Yeah, so to recap the how to get in your client's business, one, learn these differences between the empathy and the sympathy and the three that Janine talked about. Two, just really focus on the positives and shifting that conversation. And three, most importantly, just don't be scared of this. I know so many people think of like, well, I'm not the therapist, I want to get into this.